Diamondlot, The Diamond Squad. By Eric Waugh. Chapter 36. King's Arrival. Alex and Annabelle were making their way to the sound of the war horn, but a brigade of goblins and orcs blocked their path. Annabelle had no problem dealing with her enemies as she was far superior in skill. Unfortunately, she could hear Alex yelling for help as the goblins were carrying him away. She was annoyed, but she easily sliced through all her enemies and grabbed Alex by the collar. Then she threw him over her shoulder and began running away from the minions. Back at the castle, Sirit, Victoria, Ava, and Kevin were making their way towards the war horn. They were now on the highest floor of the castle where it was exposed to the sky. When they looked down, they saw Charlotte on the hyena staring down 4 other hyena riders. One of them threw a rope hoping to pull her away from her mount. But instead, Charlotte grabbed hold of the rope and commanded her hyena to circle the other 4 riders. One of the orcs was smart enough to tell its mount to get out of the way, but the other 3 stood still. Eventually, the rope fully wrapped around 3 of the orcs, and with one big pull, she took out 3 of her enemies. That left the one orc rider who drew out his scimitar, ready to charge at Charlotte. They converged against one another, the orc with its blade and Charlotte who seemed unarmed. As the hyenas met, the orc swung the scimitar to strike Charlotte, but she jumped into the air to avoid the attack. Charlotte then landed on the enemy's hyena and kicked the orc off his mount. The hyenas, seeing their riders all defeated, scurried away in fear. Ava, Kevin, Sirit, and Victoria saw all that had happened and were in awe at how Charlotte easily defeated her enemies. But someone made an unexpected arrival that caused everyone to shiver in fear. Standing on the opposite side of the battlefield, the Mad King gave an unsettling smile. Victoria knew Charlotte needed help, so everyone immediately turned around to reach the war horn. Unfortunately, a squadron of giant flying beetles landed with more of the Mad King's minions aboard. Knowing the priority was to get Kevin to the war horn, Sirit cast her illusion magic to distract the enemy. She told everyone to move on ahead while she held the illusion up. Victoria, Kevin, and Ava thanked her for her efforts and continued on. When the 3 drew closer to the war horn, another squadron of beetles appeared by crawling over the walls of the castle. Victoria pulled out her scepter and smacked one of the beetles off the wall, and it tumbled down the castle. Kevin and Ava continued to advance as Victoria turned around to face the oncoming swarm that was climbing up the walls. Ava and Kevin could see the war horn in sight, but their way was blocked as 2 more orcs riding on their beetles appeared. Kevin panicked and turned to Ava, hoping she had a plan. She didn't say anything other than return a smile back at him. The 2 beetles charged towards them at full speed. Kevin closed his eyes anticipating the worst, but when nothing happened for an extended period, he reopened his eyes. He looked around to find the beetles and the orcs lying on their backs defeated. He was confused and he turned to Ava. When asked about what happened, Ava reminded Kevin that he needed to do something important. Kevin immediately rushed towards the war horn, but he would never look at Ava the same again. The Mad King had finally arrived. Charlotte knew that this day was inevitable, but she wasn't expecting it to be this soon. She reacted by throwing a dagger she had hidden in her sleeves. He easily dodged the attack, but Charlotte immediately followed up by attempting to strike him down with multiple jabs. But the Mad King continued to avoid all of Charlotte's attacks with ease. Finally, the Mad King was done playing games. He stopped one of Charlotte's kicks by grabbing her leg and threw her against the ground. Charlotte, refusing to give up, attempted to bounce back, but the Mad King cast a dark binding spell that had her chained and unable to move. He held out his hand ready to cast one final spell, but before he could, he heard a sound coming in the distance that couldn't be ignored. It was the sound of the war horn, which meant Kevin and the others were successful in their quest. The Mad King was distracted for a moment, but he refocused on Charlotte, but he felt danger approaching from behind, so he cast a shield that blocked a volley of arrows. Then, spinning at incredible speed with his giant sword, Nathan slammed his weapon, which forced the Mad King to move away from Charlotte. Bella then appeared in front of Charlotte to ensure she was safe. Reinforcements had arrived,